Welcome to another episode of Digital Nomad on Fire, and I'm here with
Mark Phillips.
And what's your company?
Nomad Stage.
Fantastic. So that's very relevant to digital nomads. So what I'm doing, I'm selling Bansko, and I'm asking people how they became a digital nomad. So what's your story?
Oh, well, Nick, that's an interesting one. We've been travelling a lot over our lifetime. Originally I was a sportsman, travelled internationally, sporting groups. That goes on, business trips, a lot of leisure.
Which sports did you do?
I was a gymnast.
Oh, okay.
I was in the Australian Olympic level gymnastics team. So
Wow.
got to compete around the world in various competitions as a youth and teenager. And anyway, so these days I've managed to travel over 100 countries. So
Something I'm aiming for. I'm just at 73 at the moment.
it's pretty good. There's a lot of the world out there, so I reckon I'm about halfway.
Nice.
So I guess as you build a career at the same time as travelling, often you sort of follow the career, and I was lucky that I was in a tech industry which was largely US driven, so I had a lot of trips to the US and South Africa and Hong Kong, dealing with clients around the world. And then I'd set up a travel company, and of course that increases the travelling. So I guess my biggest travel was when I took a year off back in 2007 and went backpacking the length of Africa and hedge hopping through South America and just travelling for a year, visiting more and more places.
So were you a digital nomad at the time, or were you just travelling?
I guess we didn't use the term back then.
But you're working and travelling?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd been working independently for what is 17 years now. I'm making money in various ways. Back then it was a little bit of futures trading, share trading, a bit of consultancy, did a lot of mentoring work with startups. And then it would be about 6 years ago, Linda and I chose to go full-time nomading. We said, as you can hear, the accent is Australian. We said before we go and visit more of the world, we better start with our own country. So we spent a year or two travelling around Australia in a van, 4x4, with the dog and the motorbike. We actually took two vehicles and like I said, circumnavigated Australia and saw a lot of the places we hadn't been previously before jumping on the plane to Europe a couple of years ago.
So you were living in the van kind of thing? Or?
We were.
Right,
yeah.
It's a great way of saving money, I guess, isn't it?
It's actually, even travelling back in 2007, it was cheaper to travel for a year outside of Australia than living in a house for a year. So van life is a really economic way of travelling if you're a bit short of money. But more importantly, it's a fascinating way to meet a lot more people than what you would if you're sitting in just one town.
Yeah, it sounds like a really great way of travelling. I've never done it myself. So what a lot of people have a problem with is how they make that leap from not being a digital nomad to being a digital nomad.
For us, it was, we were a bit more, I'm sorry, you may have heard our digital nomad dog. Give me a take. If you can just come down. Oh, we get down here. Let's say hello to Nick. Here we go. Oh, yes. Dakar Dingo is been to 15 countries now as well.
Wow. That passport must be quite well.
He has a passport.
Are they pets do have a
There
passport?
are pets do have a passport.
Nice.
So his first international country was a very strange one. It's called the Principality of Upper Hutt, where he got his passport stamped in and out of
That's a country?
micro country. Absolutely.
That's in the UN? Or?
It is in the UN.
Really? Why haven't I heard? Whereabouts is that?
It's in the middle of Western Australia.
Oh, I feel like there's something you're not telling me about this.
No, it's a legitimate. It has about 300 embassies around the world. It's existed for about 30 or 40 years now.
Is it an Aboriginal thing? Or?
No, it was actually a really interesting story about how way back the government of Western Australia decided to tax and control the wheat industry, and a couple of farmers decided they didn't like that. They want to sell it on the open market, and so they seceded from Australia.
Wow, that's fascinating. I never knew about that.
Microestates are another fascinating topic for
but
all sorts of places in the world.
Never heard of that one. Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah. So yeah. So some people I think have a problem. They've got a 9 to 5 job. They want to be a digital nomad. Should they just quit their job and start a new business and just go 100%, or should they have a side project first? Or how did you do it? Or were you already self-employed at the time?
Was self-employed. You know, I was lucky in my tech career. I retired early. That gave me the chance to start doing things I loved doing rather than had to do for money. And so I developed sideline money-making activities, which often started off working from home and then.
Can you talk about any of those, or are they?
Sure.
Kind of
obscure? So I helped a lot of tech startups. I had helped a lot of
kind of thing?
like a consultancy, like mentoring. Did a lot of these days what we call startup weekends. Worked with accelerator programs, incubators, to try and develop the next range of innovative businesses, particularly international businesses, which is something that I love. But I was also a stock market trader, doing options and futures and things like CFDs, as they're called. This is the pre-Bitcoin days. This is having to arrange all sorts of loan accounts and lendings and things like that. And I'd sit there on the computer and trade.
So that kind of stuff with crypto now is a lot more accessible, I guess, than it used to be.
Absolutely. It's global, it's simpler in many aspects. It's not covered by a lot of legal, country-by-country legal aspects. So it is a lot easier these days. Although, being early, it's a lot more volatile. So it's a harder market to trade.
Definitely volatile. Although if you say Solana, which I really like, instead of Ethereum, the fees are very low and it's very quick as well, which makes it feasible to just dabble with a tiny bit of money.
And this has been the story of derivative trading all around the world forever. There are good markets, there are bad markets, there are different products that do different things, there are different fees, different countries. You've got to investigate all of them to work out which ones work best for you.
Great. So if you were starting to become a digital nomad today, you think it would be easier than it was when you first began?
Yes, absolutely. I guess what we're seeing is the world recognise that there is this wealth in full-time travellers, and the world is changing the products they have available. We do this at Nomad Stage. We started approaching the mainstream hotel industry, apartment hotels, and saying, how about you rent out your empty rooms at a decent price, and we can find clients who want to stay there for a week or two or a month or two.
So how would you describe what Nomad Stage is in 1 or 2 sentences?
Nomad Stage is a medium-term booking platform, which is very affordable. So a bit like an Airbnb, but you have a nomad-friendly property with internet and desks at a fraction of the price.
So it's mostly digital nomads that use this?
Remote workers and digital nomads are exactly our target market for those that are exploring the world.
Great. And what's the web address of Nomad?
Nomadstage.co.
And there are apps as well?
We've got various apps that are built into that. We don't have a native app on any of the stores at this stage, but we have a new app coming out around visa tracking, which as you start travelling countries, you realise is another complexity that needs to be thrown into the mix.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Okay, so you've been a digital nomad for a while. What are the biggest changes you've seen, do you think, while you've been travelling around?
Well, I guess now there is acceptance. People have a greater understanding about what you might be looking for.
More since COVID, do you think?
Absolutely. When we started Nomad Stage about 20 months ago, we were having to let people know what a nomad was, what a remote worker was, what technology was needed, why Wi-Fi was important, why having a desk, why having co-working was important. Now that's been so much media in the last 12 months in particular, that's become a lot easier. And at the same time, the tourism industry has been hit really hard, and so people have modified their products to be more nomad friendly, which is wonderful.
That's great. So you must have started pretty much around the beginning of COVID.
We actually started before that. It's been an idea we've been rolling from our own experience on how hard it is to find affordable accommodation around the world.
Sort of medium-term stays, kind of thing.
Yeah, medium-term. So the shortest booking we will take on Nomad Stage is a week, but the typical is 1 month.
Yeah.
Just it's enough time for people to understand and delve into a city or a region deeper, be able to do some work at the same time, build some community, meet some new people. Just when you're travelling by travelling sense, it's very superficial. You don't have great deep conversations. It's hard to build meaningful relationships. When you stay a bit longer, you can really enhance your life with a whole lot of new people.
Yeah, I've always travelled slowly. That's something I've noticed in Bansko, which is possibly the biggest digital nomad hub in Europe. I don't know.
One of the largest, certainly
biggest.
one of the most visible. I think at the moment we're probably running about 300 nomads in town, a town of about 12,000 permanent.
And as a percentage of the people in town, no, it's probably the highest percentage of digital nomads anywhere in the world.
I think
guess,
so.
because it's such a small town.
At the moment, Asia's still very locked away, so those great nomad hangouts of Chiang Mai and Bali have been hurt fairly hard. Lockdowns. You've got some big places like Madeira, Lisbon, but again, they're much larger communities. But the percentage of nomads is probably higher in these niche towns like Bansko.
Yeah, it seems like it. And most of the accommodation here, they prefer a month.
Yes.
For that reason, because it seems like you want to stay at least that long, especially if you're going to co-working spaces, if you want to meet people, if you want to get work done. If you're travelling around all the time, that's a day or two out when you can't work. And
I think what you find in Bansko is the fact that a lot of people, it's inexpensive. It's like the cheapest place in Europe. It's a couple of €100 a month for an apartment, at the early stage. Maybe 500 if you want to move to something really flash.
I mean, that's incredibly reasonably
Incredibly
priced,
affordable.
Yeah.
But it's a great place to learn, to find yourself, to start a new business. So it attracts a particular type of person that may not be as wealthy now as they might be in a year's time once they've got better. So maybe a little bit earlier stage.
And so how did you end up in Bansko at the moment?
Well, this is my third visit.
Oh, okay.
I was actually riding motorbike from China back to Spain. I was coming through down the Silk Road. As I came over from Turkey through Greece, I went through the Bulgarian mountains, my first visit to Bulgaria. And I came through the town here. I thought, wow, this is really quite an interesting
So this was
area.
before you knew it was going to be a big digital nomad?
Absolutely. There was no nomad activity here back in 2014 when I came through. I said, I definitely want to come back and do that a little bit more. And then about 2 years ago, we were heading this way. We had connected in with Co-working Bansko, which is very good marketing, the first co-working space in town. It was a big community. And that was our motivation for coming here, to see about this nomad community that was developing in Europe, in a region that wasn't really big nomading at that point in time. So we came through, we spent a few months here and really enjoyed it. Left our motorbike here because it was very icy and snowy when we left and couldn't take it out. And the plan was to come back after winter and collect it. But COVID happened, and so it was nearly 2 years before we could come back and collect the bike and continue our exploration of Europe a bit more.
So it's still here when you came back?
It was still here. There's a really good Nomad-run secure bike storage. We were their first customer, as it turned out to be. So, tech guy from Britain has started this really good place, and so it's really biker friendly around here. So if you're coming through, want to get some great biking roads and mountains and freedom and still have security, Bansko's your place.
Fantastic. And finally, what advice would you give to people who are thinking of being a digital nomad but are a bit apprehensive or not sure about it?
You've got to get out of that mindset. You've got to get into the fact that you might want to go and explore the world, meet new people. And it's an opportunity. And, it's not all rosy. There are things that happen all the time. You just got to deal with it. It's a mindset change. It's not hard really making money. All you got to do is help people around the world in whatever field you are working in.
And your costs might be a lot lower, of course, when you're...
Bansko, Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, relatively really good places to start with, because you're not going to burn a lot of your savings while you're trying to figure out where the market is and what you want to do when you grow up.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great advice. And I'll see you guys on the road.